Hey y'all, so over the break I made a interactive hardcore music system. Why? Well, those of you who are students and teachers probably know that there's a little bit of stress to burn off at the end of a semester, so what better way to do it than through hardcore music? What does this do? Well, let me show you. I'm going to turn on my DSP here. And when I'm talking, it's currently taking off the audio off my mic. So when I'm talking, you can see it turns off. And when I don't talk, it plays a hardcore drum beat. All right, we better stop that. And we'll talk through this a little bit. Now, I didn't make this for playing when I speak. I made it as an interactive system for me to play with, mostly when I'm playing on my synthesizers, my analog synthesizers. And so one of the things I did with this over the break is I recorded some tracks of me playing the Benjamin, which is a synth, a module by Rob Hordijk that can create some really sophisticated noisy timbres. I'll cut in a short clip of that here. And if that's your thing, I've also released this music on Bandcamp for you to check out. I could do this with any input though. Let's talk through this. Actually, you'll see that this draws a little bit from the silly PD interactive Christmas music system that I made in late December. We have one channel of audio coming in. Let me get back to this low pass filter. Well, honestly, I'll say right now, this low pass filter was a mistake. I wanted to have a high pass filter there in order to prevent low frequencies from being factored into this system, but I accidentally put in a low pass filter. And I kind of liked what it did. It meant that the higher the pitches went, the less these pitches influence the system. Anyway, this goes into the envelope follower, which goes to a VU meter, but the envelope follower basically shows the loudness of the input, right? So if this is our input, one channel of input, by the way, gets filtered, and then we get to see the loudness here. The main part of this, then, is it gets compared to this threshold that I can set here. 60 is a good number, so I've set a load bang there to 60. So when it gets to be less than 60 decibels, and it's changed, so it either was above and went below, or was below and went above. If it changes, then it triggers this checkbox. And that checkbox runs this metro, and that metro runs this beat, which we'll talk about in just a second. The other aspect of this is I also have it, this is a greater than, right? So this is less than, greater than. If it gets greater than 20 decibels above that threshold, again, checking for a change. If that's the case, then it randomizes the tempo. And so it randomizes at what, 0 to 149 plus 180. So these are all very fast tempos. Again, it's hardcore. And then that tempo in BPM, right, gets converted into what the metro value needs to be. So just to demonstrate that real quick, let me set it going. Okay. Now I have to get very loud in order to trigger this amplitude thing. You'll see. So 60 plus 20 is going to be 80. I have to get over 80. I don't think I can do that with just my voice, or I'm not in the mood of screaming into my mic, although that's a lot of fun. I'm going to turn up my gain a bit here. There we go. Oh, I need to set that to on. Okay, I'll stop doing that. But you get the general idea. Again, some days I'm in the mood for screaming into a microphone, as you've seen before, but today I'm not quite in that mood. All right, so let's talk about what happens here. That runs this metro. Again, this is our counter system that I've shown before. I showed in my intro to Pure Data 1. There's a counter that counts through 16 beats. This is just showing what the count is, and then we have a select that drives that. Now, an important part of this is I'm running this into Logic, and this is what's making my sounds, specifically this drum in here. It doesn't have to be this. I tried this with my Alesis D4, and I didn't really like the results that I was getting, so I switched over to doing this Contact. This is just this Abbey Road drums. Again, I'm not sponsored by Contact. Any drum sampler is going to work well. But the secret for me getting this particular drum sound is to compress the living heck out of it. So just to show y'all, let's jump back to our pure data patch. Let's get it rolling. And you can see I have a ratio of 30 here for my compression. Let's turn this off, right? And that actually sounds like quite a reasonable drum set there, like a nice reasonable drum set. But I'm intentionally compressing this so much that I'm getting this compression distortion here. And you can see my attack is super fast. My release is what, like 81 milliseconds or something. Then I've set the threshold so low that's just constantly going. I do have a second compressor on here too, but you can tell, you can hear when I turn off this fast compressor that this one's not really doing much. I don't want to get too much into this. It's a FET compressor, which is traditionally the fast compressor that we want for slammed drums like this. Anyway, let's turn off our DSP so we can get back to talking here. Okay, so what's happening is we have 16 beats. Here's my kick. I think almost all beats go on the kick, if not all of them. We'd have to trace these wires. I don't feel like doing that. But those kicks, they're velocity randomized between 100 and 127. These are my different crashes. So when the crash trigger comes in, first of all, we pick a random number 0 to 100. If it's greater than 70, so a 30% chance, then it gets triggered. And you'll see this select one here. Only runs, we're only worried about when it's 1, not when it's not 1. And so this crash only happens when it's triggered 30% of the time. And then once it happens, we again select from 3 different random cymbal sounds, and we randomize the velocity there too. I'm not really sure why I didn't do random 10 greater than 7, but it's probably just my silly habits. Snare, randomized velocity. This is a second snare here. But this one has that same random number to 100 greater than 30. So there's a 70% chance this snare will get triggered. And then, of course, these ones have a random velocity. By the way, notice that these random velocities are a different range than these ones. And then finally, hi-hats. I have a 3 in 4 chance that it'll be closed and a 1 in 4 chance that it'll be open. And then, once again, random velocities there. We end up with this beat that's regular enough to be recognizable, but randomized enough to have a little bit of fun to it. And that's about it. Now, as I said, I was running this with the Benjalin. I'll cut an image here of what one of those complete Benjalin and drum tracks looks like after all this compression. It's pretty ugly, but I decided that was basically genre appropriate. But I've tried a couple other experiments. One with a data bent file. Also feeding it back into itself. So once again, this makes sound when it's not hearing any sound. So what you do is you just play it into the microphone. So it plays a sound, and so it says, oh, I better stop playing a sound, so it stops playing. But then it doesn't hear a sound, so it says, oh, I better play something, and it keeps going. And so it ended up being a kind of interesting feedback system. So there's nothing too complicated in this, either in terms of the programming or in the sound design or anything, but I thought this was a pretty good example of something that's not too complicated, but it's sophisticated enough to serve the expressive needs that I'm going for. Again, I could build in all kinds of different flexibilities, different things that this could do, more options for drum beats, but musically, I don't need that, at least in this patch. It's typical punk music. 3 chords, or in this case, 1 interactive dimension, gives me all that I need to do. All right, that's all I got for today. See you next time.